Bihari Gopijanavallabha Girivaradari Shodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatilavanachari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naranjaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiret Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati. Somehow I'm losing every time this verse. प्रायेषु अवध्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी शृण्वता स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः निरन्तस्तोयभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our everyday discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam. We're in Canto 3, Status Quo. New chapter, chapter 30, description by Lord Kapila of adverse fruitive activities. We'll be discussing verse 1 and 2 today. Verse 1. Kapila uvacha tasyai tasya jano nunam nayam vedo ruvikramam kalyamano api balino vayo ganavali. We'll do synonyms and translation and purport. Kapila Vacha. Lord Kapila said, Tasya etasya, for this very time, of this very time factor, Janaha, person, Nunam, certainly, na, not, I am, this, Veda, knows, Uru Vikramam, the great strength, Kala, Kalyamanaha, being carried off, Api, although, Balinaha, powerful, Vayo, of the wind, Iva, like, Ghana, of clouds, Avalihi, Emas. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Sharanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The personality of Godhead said, as a mass of clouds does not know the powerful influence of the wind, a person engaged in material consciousness does not know the powerful strength of the time factor by which he is being carried. Purport. The great politician Pandita named Chanakya said that even one moment of time cannot be returned, even if one is prepared to pay millions of dollars. One cannot calculate the amount of loss there is in wasting valuable time, either materially or spiritually. One should be very alert in utilizing the time which he has at his disposal. A conditioned soul lives in a particular body for a fixed measurement of time, and it is recommended in the scriptures that within that small measurement of time, one has to finish Krishna consciousness and thus gain release from the influence of the time factor. But unfortunately, those who are not in Krishna consciousness are carried away by the strong power of time without their knowledge, as clouds are carried by the wind. Text 2. Yam yam artamupadhatte dukkhena sukhahetave tam tam dhunoti bhagavan puman chochati yat krite. Synonyms. Yam yam, whatever. Artham, object. Upadhatte, one acquires. Dukkhena, with difficulty. Sukha hetave, for happiness. Tam tam, that. Dhunoti, destroys. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Puman, the person, sochati, laments. Yat krite, for which reason. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Naravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Whatever is produced by the materialist with great pain and labor for so-called happiness, the Supreme Personality as the time factor destroys, and for this reason, the conditioned soul laments. Purport. The main function of the time factor, which is a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to destroy everything. The materialists in material consciousness are engaged in producing so many things in the name of economic development. They think that by advancing in satisfying the material needs of a man, they will be happy. But they forget that everything they have produced will be destroyed in due course of time. From history, we can see that there were many powerful empires on the surface of the globe that were constructed with great pain and great perseverance. But in due course of time, they have all been destroyed. Still, the foolish materialists cannot understand that they are simply wasting time in producing material necessities, which are destined to be vanquished in due course of time. This waste of energy is due to the ignorance of the mass of people who do not know that they are eternal and that they have an eternal engagement also. They do not know that this span of life in a particular type of body is but a flash in the eternal journey. Not knowing this fact, they take the small flash of life to be everything, and they waste time in improving economic conditions. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमां विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् दिनामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome back to our daily discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam. Um, as as I got to as after discussing with Lakshmikant Prabhu, when I realized that I'm speaking on these two verses, the first thought that crossed my mind was neither my experience of with in terms of just being of the age or just the spiritual relation are in no way to the level that is needed for speaking such a verse which is quite intense. Well, if I could use that word, but just just reading the translation and purport of Srila Prabhupada, and I'd like to share some thoughts, but I'll seek forgiveness in the beginning. I'm sure many of you can do much better. I see Sandhya Mataji is here. She can speak much more with much more conviction and realization. So I humbly seek your blessing, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So one thing that I wanted to kind of start off, as I said, like I was trying to see. So many times it so happens that there are certain statements that are made, and especially in this age and time where we are living, in terms of the social media and everything, there are a lot of these statements and classes that we might hear from this, especially with these small snippets that comes as reels. We do hear this, and then we kind of sometimes form our own opinions of why is that. Like sometimes a devotee might speak something which might not kind of what this devotee is saying is kind of goes completely against. But in each of those situations, it's important to understand what is the question that's driving that sentence from the devotee. Because if any answer or any statement that we make or anybody makes is always contextual, unless you're the supreme personality of Godhead, where like your statements are absolute. Except for the Supreme Lord, there's nobody absolute other than the Supreme Lord. So every statement that is made has a specific context, And obviously, Kapila Dev is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this statement, what he's making, is absolute with respect to the understanding of the futility of the material engagement that we follow. But like like it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, any time that Krishna is invoking a specific name of Arjuna, it is not just a random name that he's invoking. There's a specific purpose or a specific emotion that Krishna is trying to invoke from Arjuna. So there's a context, even for the absolute statement that Krishna is making through Bhagavad Gita, when he's invoking a specific name of Arjuna as Partha or Gudakesha or Dhananjaya, there is a specific kind of emotion, because every name is connected to a emotion. Like when my kids call me Nana, there is a specific emotion that gets triggered. When my parents call me Hari, there is a specific emotion that gets triggered. When my devotee friends call me Haridhvani, then there is a specific emotion. So each name is attributed to an emotion. So there is a context to that. There is a context and like a kind of relationship. So I just wanted to uh, take tell a small story. Why is it important to understand the context or the question, and then we'll go back to the original question that Mother Devoti asked, which is driving. As we understand, there are set of sequence, and Bhagavatam is all about Q&A. So there is similar to how Parikshit Maharaj asked set of questions, and that drove the whole discussion of Bhagavatam. Similarly, Mother Devoti has asked set of questions in the beginning of the 29th chapter that we have just completed. And this answers that Kapila Dev has already provided and is providing is in continuation of those answers. So, but before we get there, I wanted to kind of share a small story, which I've remember hearing this almost maybe 15 years back. So this is a real story that happened. One of the brahmacharis from Chaupati was in his Europe tour, and he went to one of the temples in Europe, and there His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj was on the Vyasasan. It was not the regular Srimad Bhagavatam discussion, but there was a kind of like a ad hoc class that Maharaj was giving. And as devotee walks in, he was so excited that, oh, I'll be hearing from His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj, who is such a wonderful devotee and a scholar, and that will be very helpful. And he walks into the class, and he sits in the class, and all he hears from Jayadvaita Maharaj is the core philosophy of Mayavad. And as he kind of initially sits there and then he waits, maybe Maharaj is trying to present some point of Mayavad and then he's going to refute that point. But the class went on for almost an extended period of time, and Maharaj was just presenting that. And this devotee was like, "What's happening here? This is not Jayadvaita Maharaj that I've heard of or have known. So there's something that I'm missing here." And then he turns towards the devotee who was sitting by his side, and then he asks, "What's happening here? I'm kind of not able to understand why is Maharaj speaking like this." And then the devotee tells that Maharaj, this is a special class where Maharaj said that he'll be playing the role of Mayavad, which is a classic role that even Srila Prabhupada used to play when he used to go on these morning walks, where he used to be like the Mayavad philosopher, and then all the devotees had to refute him. So what did Jayadvaita Maharaj tell in the class is, in the beginning of the class, which this devotee mails to us, in this class I'll be acting as a person of Mayavad philosophy, and then I'll present my point of view, and after some point of time, then we'll open the floor and you'll have to refute the arguments that I'm making. So let's think of a scenario where this devotee sat in the class, did not understand the context of what Maharaj is presenting, and then if he would have, rather than clarifying why is Maharaj speaking this way, if he would have just left the class, then he would have always had this understanding that Jayadvaita Maharaj presents Mayavad philosophy sitting on a Vyasasana. But because he clarified, then everything became clear to him. So the context is always the most important. And with respect to the context, then if you kind of expand the context, then the core thing that drives the context is the question. So with that being said, then we'll come back to the original question what Mother Devoti asked. And from there, we'll see, because it might um, just hearing the statements of what Kapila is saying here, as a mass of clouds does not know the powerful influence of a wind, a person engaged in material consciousness does not know the powerful strength of the time factor by which he is being carried. And then the next verse, which says, whatever is produced by the materialist with great pain and labor for so-called happiness, the supreme personality of the time factor destroys. And for this reason, the conditioned soul laments. It just, if you kind of take out the entire, like just take, without understanding the context, just take these statements as is, it might appear that there is a kind of vindictive agenda that the Supreme Lord has against this what the verse uses, the word that Srila Prabhupada used is a materialist, which again goes back to that statement or the idea where Prabhupada many a times refutes in Bhagavad Gita, where it says Krishna does not have any favoritism towards his devotees. It's just that the devotees are surrendering, so Krishna is reciprocating. So if anybody who surrenders to Krishna, there's no favoritism for Krishna. It's not that, oh, Krishna has this, even in the verse that in the Bhagavad Gita where it says, when Krishna is saying, Kalosmi lokaksha krit pravruddho, the verse says that Krishna specifically calls out that except for you, five Pandavas, everybody is going to be destroyed. It might appear like a favoritism. So similarly here, if you don't understand the context of why the Bhagavad Gita, like the entire context of what Mahabharata was happening and why did even come to that point of Krishna showing that universal form and everything, it's very easy to understand it as being a favoritism, and the Lord, whom we call it as an ever well wisher, being a personality of vindictive agenda, being there at it to kind of make sure that this materialists who are not surrendering to him and not being favorable towards him, he has this vindictive agenda to kind of make them lament always and then kind of always being destroying everything. So it's important to understand why, um, what is the context of these verses. And the verse that Mother Devati said is it so this the entire chapter 30, our acharyas tell this is actually an answer of this one specific question that Mother Devati asked. And the verse is from Canto 3, chapter 29, verse 3. The verse goes like this. Virago yeno purusha, virago yena purusho, Bhagavan sarvato bhavet, achakshva jiva lokasya, vividha mama samsruti. So the verse translation is, Devavati continued. You're already asked in the verse 1 and 2 a set of questions, and then she's now continuing in the verse 3. Devavati continued, my dear Lord, please also describe in detail, both for me and for people in general, the continual process of birth and death. And here is an interesting word that Mother Devati uses. For by hearing such calamities, we may become attached from the activities of this material world. So the entire purpose of Mother Devati, it, so it so again, kind of expanding this one specific thing. It's not that we have heard from all the devotees. It's not that Mother Devati is an attached person to this material world or anything. She's the mother of the Supreme Lord. So there is no way that she has these petty attachments to the activities of this material world. But she is similar to how Arjuna is placed in that situation. She is herself voluntarily placing herself in that situation. And then she's saying that, please, for my benefit, in her humble position, she's saying, for my benefit and for people in general, please explain the continual process of birth and death. And why do I want to hear it? I want to hear it not to become scared of this process or scared of this place. I just want to become detached from these activities of the material world, so I can then, from that position of being detached, we need to be always attached. As a jiva, our position is being attached. And once we become aloof from these activities of the material world, naturally then the proclination is directed towards the shelter, becoming attached towards the activities of the spiritual world. So that's the context why Kapila Devi is expanding and kind of giving this, which might, without the context, might appear as being kind of an unfair situation for the people in general. Of you kind of um, how do you say that? You're expected to work in this world. It's not that when um, you're not expected to just sit idle. And in fact, Srila Prabhupada in his purport to verse 2, he clearly says, where is that? He says both the spiritualists and the materialists. I'm not able to. Yeah, he says either materially or spiritually, one should be very alert in utilizing the time which he has at his disposal. So it's not that just the situation is kind of is is precarious only for the materially situated personality, but also for the spiritually situated personality. It's the same thing. The time is being carried for irrespective of whichever position that you are in. And we see that example that we have we have all of us have either heard stories, and in some cases maybe some of us were fortunate to be have seen devotees in those final moments when they're about to leave this body, through those moments of kind of leading up to the time, or kind of somehow we had this great fortune of being present when these devotees were leaving this world. And in all those stories and in some of those experiences which have might have been fortunate, we see that the devotee, when at that moment of leaving the body, has this great conviction and smile. um, Growing up, I've always heard the story of this devotee from ISKCON Chaupati, His Grace Stoka Krishna Prabhu. Um, it was a wonderful story that used to be, that was kind of well documented, and there are videos that were kind of prepared now through his journey of how he was diagnosed with cancer, and then and the whole situation, and then eventually he ended up leaving his body within the temple premises. And his own Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj also talks about his friend Janakinath Prabhu, who was diagnosed also with the cancer. And he says that it was kind of wonderful, um, the devotee that um, um, like the experiences that he was sharing in those last moments. And who better an example than Srila Prabhupada himself, who kind of was he did not need it. It was not that he was diagnosed with some kind of illness or anything, but Srila Prabhupada, being the Acharya, being the founder Acharya he wanted to kind of show that, okay, now um, I've shown an example of how an young, small children are kind of need to be treated. I've led that example by doing Rath Yatra and everything. Every phase in some way or the other is an example for each of us. And he also wanted to kind of show this example of how a devotee needs to leave his body. And following in his footsteps, His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Swami Maharaj, recently His Holiness Kadamakanand Swami Maharaj, and a few years, like almost few decades back, His Holiness Sridhar Swami Maharaj, and many more, many such more. We have heard of examples, and we've also in some cases we might have read about them, or in some cases we have been fortunate to have witnessed in close proximity about these devotees, their experiences. And it kind of sometimes is puzzling, because when we see these people, when we see these devotees in their last stages of being on the deathbed, um, it does not appear like how Mother Devut is describing as a calamity. For us who are about to lose, like for those of us who are left here, without the association of His Holiness Kadamakanand Swami Maharaj, or His Holiness Sridhar Swami Maharaj, His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Swami Maharaj, it's a calamity for us. Like I remember hearing once we were in Mayapur. I think this was in 2015 or 2016. We happened to be in Mayapur during the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada. And one of the Srila Prabhupada's disciples, Mataji, was saying that for each of you next generation, it might not appear why do we celebrate the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada, and why is it that this a set of old people are so sad on this day but are also so joyful. So she was saying that you might not fully relate to us, but we are just glad that you're here, um, because the level of connection that the devotees who have with Srila Prabhupada feel on that specific day, on the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada, everyone might not be able to experience unless we have that specific connection that we are building. So similarly, for these devotees who are leaving, um, for each of us, it's a calamity because we are about to lose the association of the devotee. But for the person who is actually about to leave, their interactions with everybody, or just their demeanor might not appear of being a calamity, or any of that sort. And um, it does not appear to be like a calamity, nor does it appear to be of something where they're precariously placed, and they're about to lose everything. It appears kind of even what uh, Kapila Dev says. It's look like Krishna's statements of as the time I am the destroyer, I'm the great destroyer of everything. Krishna uses the specific adjective of being great. And then, as Kapila Dev is saying, as the time factor destroys whatever great pain and labor for so-called happiness that like if you kind of look at it from just the physical labor standpoint of it, what each devotees are doing will not be any less than any of the normal pain and labor that anybody who is just materially engaged might be performing. Like we know of devotees who are traveling. Like His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj at one point used to travel more than some of these big executives that could travel. Like it was. I think there was some kind of a record that Maharaj even made with the amount of travel that he was making, and even in the present situation that he is in, he's still active. He's still doing so. Just from the just comparative analysis that if you do of the physical pain and labor, it does not appear to be of uh, a materialistic person being doing great pain and labor, and a spiritually oriented person doing any less. It in sometimes it might be more, and in most cases it is equivalent. But in the time of the death, it does not appear that as Kapila Dev is saying, the conditioned soul laments. But whereas, as we have seen in the case of, in fact, very famously, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj has been told that he himself has kind of prayed that whatever I could do to kind of let go of suffering of many devotees, I'm ready to do that. And there was no regret in any of these cases of His Holiness Kadambakananda Swami Maharaj, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, or Janakinath Prabhu, that I've heard of stories. These are the three stories that I've heard a lot, and in fact also His Grace Toka Krishna Prabhu, is there is never a point of them being regret of why did I take shelter of, if this is the result that I'm getting for surrendering my life, and not just life, like their prime youth. In the case of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he came into the movement when in his prime youth, and His Holiness Kadambakananda Maharaj, he, like many of the wonderful things that we now go and relish in ISKCON Vrindavan, he as the temple president was the one. And in fact, because he was trying to clean a lot of things that were happening, in fact he was one shot also. And neither during that time or later during the phases or when he was about to leave the body, there was never a point of this regret, or I've done so much, and I'm everything is just being taken away. But there's more gratitude that I've actually got more than what I deserve. And with that, in these cases, it's we are always told when there is a situation that comes up, most of the times it's two responses that we give. One is being an optimistic person, where you're trying to see good and the best, like where he said, everything that happens is for us, for our best. An optimistic person is always seeing that, okay, I've got this situation, how do I make the best out of it? And then a pessimistic person is always, like the classic case is shown as, an optimistic person is always thinking a glass is given and he's saying that the glass is half full. And then a pessimistic person will say the glass is half empty. So this comparative analysis of, are the devotees optimistic or pessimistic? There is actually a wonderful set of series of classes that both His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu and His Holiness Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj has done on this series. And in fact, recently, His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu has been posting a set of series, kind of. He started posting a new way of quotes where it's like an interaction, which, if any of you have seen, it's wonderful. If not, please go to his any of these websites and you can see. I'll also try to see if I can present. So this is like a recent thing that he's yeah, so this is a kind of recent thing that he's been posting, where it's like a dialogue between a devotee and a seeker, and then he comes up with these wonderful things. And in the recent set of sequences that he has been posting is on this the thing that we are discussing right now, which is an optimistic person and being a pessimistic person, and then what is the best option? Is optimism always the best, or pessimistic always meaning that it's wrong? Like for example, in the situation that we have considered, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj or Kadambakaran Maharaj, an optimistic person who, from our situation, an optimistic person might think that, okay, I understand this place is full of pain and suffering, and because have taken the shelter of Krishna, there's no trouble for me. And a pessimistic person, by hearing these verses, an optimistic person might think, okay, this is just being talked about materialist who might undergo this great pain and labor for so-called happiness. But Supreme Personality, as he needs to do, is as the time factor destroys everything, and then because of that, the conditioned soul is lamenting. And because I'm not a conditioned soul, I'm not taking great pain in labor for the so-called happiness. I'm chanting, I'm reading, and I'm exposing myself to this wonderful process of devotional service. So there's no trouble for me. I'm everything is happy and well for me. And a pessimistic person might see that if 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 in spite of doing everything that I need to do, if at the end of the day it comes back to as being um, this Krishna is going to destroy everything, then it goes back to that original point that we were discussing as being vindictive agenda. But what our acharyas tell, and what even um, both in their comparative analysis, what Chaitanya Charan Prabhu and Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj, and in fact our acharyas through the pages are explaining, is a devotee is being a realistic person. He understands the nature of this place that I am in, this material world, is of pain and suffering. And me being part of this place, I cannot avoid I cannot avoid experiencing this pain and suffering. Srila Prabhupada, who was, as we all understand, um, is not from this place. And we have also heard, I think, when was it? In the recent trip of His Holiness Rompan Maharaj, Yamuna Jivan Prabhu was saying about this example where, when during this story that is shared in Srila Prabhupada's memories, a devotee was sharing a story where Srila Prabhupada is walking in Australia, and every devotee, when they were walking, the grass was being stamped and you could clearly see a person has walked. But the place where Srila Prabhupada was walking, there were no stamps on the grass, and it was just as if the grass was never stamped. So there are these mystical things that were always happening around Srila Prabhupada. But even Srila Prabhupada himself had to go through when he was distributing Srila Prabhupada, when he was distributing the books, he had to be, he was hit by a bull, and then he had sunstrokes, and he had heart attacks. He had a lot of physical ailments that were needed, this where he had to kind of be given specific set of massages. And even during the last stages, they were like this the physical pain and suffering that Srila Prabhupada or any of these devotees have undergone is in some ways unavoidable. But through that pain or joy, what is clearly apparent in the cases of Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and many other, um, obviously we are only somehow taking examples of those devotees who have never left, um, who have always been surrendered to the process. But we've also heard stories of, like, taking the example of Ajamila. He was not, in the moment of that calamity, during the times of his death, he was not this surrendered person who was at one point of his life, but he was always under the care of the Lord. And we have also heard of stories of Srila Prabhupada's disciples and many other wonderful devotees who have, for some reason or the other, might have externally appeared as being kind of moved away from the service of the Lord, but the Lord has never left them, and that is the reality of our situation. We are not just optimistic because we are not that category, nor are we pessimistic that this is a terrible place, but we are realistic that this is a place of pain and suffering, and being part of this place, I will experience pain, and it's our day-to-day experience. Also, we do experience pain, but through that, it doesn't matter if it is pain or joy. Through that pain or joy or any kind of experience that might happen to us, the conviction that all of these stories and these verses are kind of what they are nudging us forward, is to have this, develop this conviction of being a realistic. Irrespective of whatever happens, you're always under the shelter of the Lord. And in fact, there are these wonderful purports our acharyas have given to this specific verses, where it says that it's not the Lord is being vindictive or anything. It's everything is created for the pleasure of the Lord. So when you are trying to exploit the situation, and for example, if we let's consider that we have brought something or made something for because our kids like it, and then in some ways it is created for their pleasure, but let's say that even when we have conveyed it to them that, hey, it is, or let's say our kids have made something for themselves as a play toy or something, and then we realize that I can just use it for something that I need it, then the end result is not wonderful. So here also, what everything is created here is for the pleasure of the Lord. And without understanding the purpose of that, if you are trying to be of kind of snatching something from the Lord, then, because the thing itself is not created for your pain, for your pleasure, or not pain, but for your pleasure, when you try, when because you're kind of unnaturally creating an attachment towards that. And because the Lord has created for himself, it is up to him whenever he wants to destroy it. It's not that Lord is being vindictive or anything. It's Lord's property, and it's up to him whenever he wants to do what he wants to do. And because of this false attachment that we create, thinking that, oh, this is mine, and when somehow it is taken by the original owner of that item, then because of the false attachment, then we kind of get into this grievance. But whereas a devotee, because he is realistic, he is a devotee is also trying to create wonderful things and amazing things, and is undergoing a lot of pain and labor, but he has this right understanding that what I'm trying to do is for the Lord. And when the time comes that he has to kind of let go and leave everything and then go back into a shell like a tortoise, then he understands that this was never mine. This was always the Lord's, and I was trying to do the best that I could do. And now the message has come to me that I just need to retract myself and focus solely on not just the external factors, aspects of performing the service, but the internal mood of completely taking shelter, then as in the case of Parikshit Maharaj, as in the case of Srila Prabhupada, as in the case of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, Kadan Makan Swami Maharaj, Sridhar Maharaj, and many wonderful devotees, um, the time will not be like a calamity or a kind of fearful situation, but the time would be of a wonderful joy, where we feel that complete shelter of the Lord, and not just the Lord, but of all of His wonderful devotees that we are surrounded by. With that, I'll end. If there are any corrections or questions and comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I missed first 10-15 minutes. It was a such a nice class, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So just I mean, thinking about the various example of devotees, right? I mean, what do you call the contemporary devotees that we saw? I mean, how they left the body. I mean, I was remembering Kadamakanana Maharaj on his
Mm.
deathbed, I think day before or so. He was saying that see you all in
Yes.
Golok Vrindavan, right? I mean,
Yes.
he was happily saying as if he is sending off or he is going. I mean,
He's going
he's
there
not
to
done.
prepare.
Huh?
He's going there to prepare for us.
Yes, it was such a happy moment. I mean, of course, for us it's like tears because we are losing
Yes.
great person, right from our side. But yeah, it was such a confidence, right? So I mean, I heard that Stoka Krishna Prabhu story. I mean, Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj's friend talking about whatever time he is there and he wanted to do.
Yeah.
He was not at all remorse. I mean, he had a few years of his life, so he wanted to. He was he was the most happiest person within that whomever he's meeting. So it was how I think Maharaj was asking how is it possible. Then I think he spoke whole thing, right? I think I don't know if I remember. I heard it from him. I think I heard from him. So Swayam Bhagwan Keshav Maharaj. It
Yeah.
was a nice uh, experiences for us to at least to see how a great devotee a person leaves the body right there not attached. So thank you, Prabhu. I think very nice examples you the contemporary devotees that you quoted.
Thank you, Prabhu.
uh,
The glories of the devotees.
yes.
Yes. If anything, if it can at least give us,
I
I
mean
don't think we can
some
fully practically realize their conviction, and because unless you're in that situation, it
yeah
might appear theoretical, but at least that confidence that Krishna will not like even this example that Radhika Raman Prabhu was giving in Gita Nagari about
mm,
a devotee who was
yeah,
diagnosed with cancer.
sir, yeah
It, like these stories, if anything, at least if they can instill us then that confidence that
right
in the moment of crisis that I'm not forsaken, that's the best we can do.
yes.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, Bhagavatam talks about many examples, but this is contemporary, right? I mean, it's like
Correct. Yeah.
for us, we'll be able to connect so easily. I mean, yeah, we can see at least. We are not there.
Yeah. We cannot tell that, oh, yeah, that's history.
Yeah. Yes.
That is his story, not just history.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
Please
Krishna.
accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. One of the, one thing that I feel is for them, it's not really like, you know, for us, it's like, okay, it's so devastating. We don't know. It's the unknown. But for them, it's almost like going from one city to the other. What's the big deal, right?
Yeah.
Also in Bhagavatam, I was reading, sorry, I'm in the temple and
No, no.
there's a little bit of noise. Um, in Bhagavatam also, like in the, we hear about the times when someone achieves something great and the demigods shower flowers, the
Mm.
sages shower flowers. So it's like, it's all seamless. It's not
Yeah.
like, totally unknown and we're in an unknown world, that is totally unknown to us. So, yeah, I was thinking it's like just going from one place to the other for another service. That's
Yeah.
all it is. Yeah. Also, the thing about troubles, and when we are in trouble, and this was, I think, the two verses that I did last week. The thing that came up a few times is the Lord. When devotees are put in trouble, it's often just the Lord trying to course correct us. When we have swayed a little bit, it put us in trouble so that we are intimidated a little bit, and our sadhana can intensify a little. Because we've become maybe a little complacent or whatever, things are going well, and you know so I think, with regard to that, I was hearing from somebody, I don't remember who, but the fact that it's not really karma when devotees that have the desire to serve the Lord and are dedicated but become complacent and sometimes deviate a little bit. It's more that the Lord is actually trying to bring us back and giving us a little bit of
Nudging.
yeah.
Tap
Thank
on the
you.
wrist.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All yours, just love. Very nice class, Prabhu. This is very practical, and the contemporary devotees leaving their bodies, who are full of service. I mean, we see them as the cup is full. And when we as for me, I see that half empty. So I always wonder how I deal with this and how I live this day, even knowing that it is half empty. And from day one to next day, tomorrow also, I go through the same lifestyle. What to do about that one? Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. At least we are in the midst of devotees and
Yes.
in a center like Naperville. That helps.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
If nothing else, then I think we can end. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindubhyascha patidānām bhavayo. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.